Welcome to this week's episode of Humans in 5.
It's term time here in the Northern Hemisphere, and both of us have had the pleasure of teaching students new and exciting content. One of the catches that comes with teaching, particularly complex, memorization-heavy information like anatomy, is the yearly concern that students have with memorization.
The phrase we hear again and again is, "But I'm just not good at memorizing information." Even then, a lot of students are really nervous to express this concern. They feel like they might be judged for admitting that this is not a particular strength of theirs. First and foremost, we genuinely appreciate hearing this from students. It's really hard to be an instructor when you don't know what's going well or what's a concern for your students.
Secondly, it gives us the opportunity to share some neat research about how we can work to build up our ability to remember a lot of complex information. Ultimately, there are many different strategies that can help us to remember a lot of information. Some people like to use flashcards, where they can see, for example, a word on one side and test them about what it means by trying to recall that information.
To check if they're right, they can flip the card over to the other side where the correct answer is written. One of the reasons flashcards work is because we can scramble them up. When we try to sit down and read our notes again and again in the same order, we sometimes run into the trap of memorizing the sequence of information rather than the information itself.
For example, if we've written the names of different bones in alphabetical order and we read that alphabetical list over and over again, we might only be able to remember terms when we go through the whole alphabetical list. Flashcards force us to shake things up and can help us remember things when they occur out of order, which is more like what we'd actually find on a test or out there in the real world.
So, flashcards can help, but even then, sitting around and reading or flipping through flashcards over and over again can get pretty boring. And when we're bored, we're not going to remember much. We're often taught when we're young that sitting down, sitting still, and unmovingly watching the pages go by is the only way to cram that information into your brain. But what if that's wrong? What if sitting still and glancing your eyes back and forth isn't the best way to learn something new?
Researchers Helga Noyce of Elmhurst College and Tony Noyce of Indiana State University were keen to learn more about how breaking out of this mold might help people learn large volumes of information. In particular, they were curious to learn about how actors can learn truly huge volumes of information in memorizing their lines and how they can keep it in their brains for weeks on end during the run of a show.
They set up an experiment. In one group, untrained actors would sit down and deliberately try to memorize the material. In another, untrained actors would learn their lines as they read the text and physically moved around the stage in accordance with the director's instructions.
In short, the Noyces found that physical movement contributed to both the processing of information, the learning and understanding of lines, as well as the retrieval of information, or their ability to remember it for long periods of time. The use of physical movement while trying to learn and understand something seemed to make that information not only stick in the mind better, but help to make it stick around for longer too. And you don't need to be moving to recall that information. Moving gets it in your brain and can help it stay there, even if you need it while sitting still.
The act of reciting and giving meaning to lines also seems to help with memory. It wasn't just regurgitating the lines that helped with memorization. Thinking of them as part of a story or a narrative also seemed to really drill that information in and help it stick around.
This is why we often recommend to students, get out of the chair. If you're trying to learn something like anatomy, physically move your body. Point to the parts of your body that you're trying to learn yourself or move them around as you learn about them. Try walking, dancing, reciting the facts you need to learn like a story as you move around.
By getting out of the old study chair, or at least moving around in that chair instead of sitting still, you might give yourself a big step up in terms of being able to remember the things you need to know. Ultimately, you need to go with what works for you, and this might not work for everyone, but there's nothing wrong with giving it a try.
We hope all of you learners find the skills that work for you in this study season, and we'll see you next time on Humans in 5.
And don't forget to subscribe.